everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on rashpixel.fm. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello.
See, last time you gave me trouble for asking it, that I'm here with Nikki Kinzer, and now I'm trying really hard to make a statement about your presence.
Really?
Yeah, no, I want people to know you are here.
I am. I'm here.
I am so excited about our conversation today. We are talking about nutrition and how your diet can impact your ADHD, and we have a great guest to help us out. But before we do that, head over to TakeControlADHD.com. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list and get an email with the latest episode each and every week. Of course, you can connect with us on Twitter and Facebook at TakeControlADHD and call us. You can leave us a voicemail at 503-664-4ADD and get your voice, thoughts, and questions right here on this very show. And particularly today, you know, we've talked about nutrition before. We've talked about the importance of these things around self-care. We want to hear from you. How does your diet impact your ADHD? Our guest today is Tonya Harris. She is on a mission to help parents learn how both diet and common toxins in the home can affect their child's health and lessen the symptoms of behavior and attention issues through simple dietary and lifestyle changes. She's board certified in holistic nutrition and a fantastic all-around educator. She writes about the health implications of common chemicals in our homes and the effects on our children on her website at goneholistic.net. Tonya Harris, welcome to the ADHD podcast. We're so glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
Hi, Tonya. I would love to learn more about what it is that you do for people. Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. Well, what I like to do is I like to take parents through the areas of their home, whatever's in their food, and also what's in their cleaning products or beauty care products that might be affecting the health of their children, specifically how it's affecting their brain development.
Interesting. So do you actually go into people's homes, or is this something that you do online?
I have gone into people's homes, but I do most of it online. It's amazing what you can do now by Skype. So
yes.
I actually do a lot that way.
That's great. So what inspired you to get involved in this kind of work?
I've always been interested in what I've put, on my body or, what I've eaten, because I had childhood leukemia at the age of 7. And then,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is a big wow.
Yeah, that definitely was a good start. So
yeah.
I've always been a little interested, but really what got me into the brain function and how it affects brain development was when my kids were diagnosed. My son started exhibiting symptoms in 2nd grade.
Now, symptoms of ADHD?
ADHD. Okay. Yep. And kind of just inattention and kind of, spacing out, as they called it. So the teacher called me in and said, they're thinking about testing. So I kind of went home thinking there's got to be something I can do. So I was doing a ton of research about, what we were eating or what we were using in our homes that maybe that could lessen his symptoms. Mm-hmm. And I made some small changes. And then within a few months, I went back to meet with the teacher, and the team no longer wanted to test him.
It's like magic.
Wow. So you found a definite connection between nutrition, what you were eating, and these ADHD symptoms.
Right. Yeah. Just just to lessen the symptoms is basically what we saw. So outside of your son, I mean, obviously you have personal experience with it, and you've also done a ton of research with the business that you're in now. How important is the role of nutrition in ADHD? There's varying, it's kind of controversial. Some people say there is, some people say there isn't, but I think it's a huge leap. Because really what you do through nutrition is optimize your brain function. So if you keep your cell membranes healthy and you're doing everything you need to keep those neurotransmitters optimal, you're going to have better brain health than rather if you're eating a bunch of bad fats, which actually make your cell membrane so rigid, the nutrients can't get in and the waste can't get out. That's eventually going to cause a lot of problems. So when you're eating an optimal diet and giving your body what it needs, who doesn't want the better brain function?
Well, that's really it. Right. This isn't about fads. This isn't about, nutritional buzzwords. It's just about smart and healthy eating. Right? I mean, it's not, we don't have to get stuck in like the latest hipster nutrition language.
No, I don't believe so. And everybody's so individual anyway. I think basically, you eat healthy fats and there's certain things you should avoid. So really, not doing any of those fad diets. Mm-hmm. I don't recommend that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are actually going to be giving away a fantastic guide that we're going to have in our show notes about getting started. You have a lot of information about different supplements and things to avoid and things to look for. And, I think it'd be a great place to start to kind of figure out, like, where do people begin this journey of living a healthy lifestyle? What kind of advice would you give to somebody?
Sure. Well, first of all, one of the bigger things that they've found that especially children react to are food sensitivities through food colorings and artificial flavorings. So that's one of the things I would take out first is anything you see that's got like a red number 40 or a yellow number 5. I would take those out of the diet right away, as well as I would also take out MSG. MSG is an excitotoxin. That's something that a lot of people just have reactions to anyway. And they've found that can actually, an author of Excitotoxins, The Taste That Kills, he actually says that he believes that ingesting that over time can lead to learning disabilities and neurological problems such as ADHD.
Oh, interesting.
Well, so specifically MSG, you don't have ADHD, and suddenly you do.
With MSG.
Right. You start eating MSG, you're actually creating a condition in which you have ADHD. That's what you're saying.
Or at least the symptoms.
That is bananas.
Right. Mm-hmm. That is.
Well, and MSG, I mean, when I hear you say that, I think of Chinese food.
Yeah, but Chinese food like 25 years ago. I feel like the Chinese restaurants have figured it out. Why haven't the rest of everybody?
What is MSG? Like, I know that's probably a big question, but like, what is it? Like, I don't understand it.
Oh, sure. It's actually the number one most used food enhancer or food flavor enhancer in the world that's used. And it's hidden in a lot of foods. So it's in salad dressings, it's in crackers, cookies, chips. There's so many things it's in. And the thing is there's over 40 different ingredients that contain MSG. So if you don't see monosodium glutamate listed on the label, that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have MSG. It could have something like autolyzed yeast extract, which does contain MSG. So therefore that product does contain it.
Even if the product is claiming that they don't directly contain MSG, you still have to be careful about it.
Right. And that's kind of common on soup cans. Some soups are labeled MSG free. And then on the back, when you turn it over, you'll see like autolyzed yeast extract written there, which does contain the MSG.
That's crazy.
Now, on your handout, do you have the other names for that? Is that something that you have available?
I do. I have a link to a great table, and it lists all of the ingredients. Yes.
Because that's the thing that I think is so frustrating, or at least a little intimidating, is that you want to read labels, right? I mean, at least I do. I mean, I want to go to the grocery store and be educated and read these labels. And like when you were talking about the food coloring, I can spot that because they make it pretty clear, you know. But yeah, the MSG, even the sugar is really complicated to kind of weed out.
I think you're exactly right, Nikki, because it's, the food coloring is a really easy one because generally the food is going to be a different color. And for me, if it's a different color, that's a trigger. But something like MSG is really insidious because you can't always tell, I can't see an enhanced flavor.
Right. And if you look for something even like in natural flavoring, it's also contained in there. So there's lots of ways for them to get around it.
So when you're trying to avoid these things, I mean, what would be a good diet? I mean, I've heard of like clean eating where you kind of just stick with fruits and vegetables and proteins and stay away from processed foods. I mean, is that what you would say? Like, how do you avoid these things?
Sure. Well, there's things I would recommend to add to the diet if that helps. Definitely clean eating, but one of the main things people don't get enough of is protein, and surprisingly that has a lot to do with brain health. For one thing, if you don't have enough protein, you don't have enough amino acids to make those neurotransmitters, so the cells in your brain can't communicate like they're supposed to. So that affects memory, so working memory, even behavior. And then, of course, inattention.
Well, and when you were talking about working memory, I'm just thinking executive functions, right? So you probably have all these things, getting started, following through, time management, organizing. All of those things are probably affected.
Exactly. And that's, just to get enough high quality protein in your diet. And following that, also blood sugar dysregulation is a big issue. So blood sugar issues the brain uses glucose for its number one fuel. So if you have no glucose going in or all of a sudden a big flood, that can affect your brain too. And it even affects aggressive behavior. And again, memory and attention.
Glucose is sugar, right?
Correct. Yep.
So there's got to be a balance then, is what you're saying, between cutting out sugar, but how does that work?
Sure. Well, one of the ways is protein. So what's interesting is that putting a protein with a carbohydrate for a snack, such as an apple with peanut butter or almond butter, is actually what I would recommend. It gives you the carbohydrate you need for that sugar, but it also gives you that protein. And what that does is it balances out your blood sugars. It keeps it steady longer. And it also fills you up for longer, so you don't get those blood sugar crashes.
So are you under the kind of the philosophy, is it better to kind of have smaller meals throughout the day that have, each meal has a little bit of protein, or how do you do that within your diet?
I do, when people have a blood sugar issue, I do recommend having at least a snack every 2 to 3 hours. Mm-hmm. And again, combining that carbohydrate with that protein.
Pete had mentioned before about kind of fad diets or kind of buzzwords. And I know that in the last, year or so, probably longer than that, because these things have been around forever. It's just like they seem to be out now with more publicity. But the GMO, kind of craze that people are talking about, and organic versus non-organic. I'm just curious to know from your standpoint, what exactly is a GMO and why do we have to stay away from them?
Well, a GMO is a genetically modified organism. So they have done something to that food, such as adding a protein from one food to another. Mm-hmm. There's so much varying research, and that's probably a whole nother topic. But
okay. I'm hoping you have a big can of worms, is what you're saying.
I can sum it up really quick. Just in the fact that I
summarize this in 1 minute, please. Okay,
sure. Let's see if we can just end the debate altogether.
That's right.
Well, I'll just use my favorite quote that I love from Robin O'Brien, where she says, "Are we allergic to our food or what's been done to it?" Mm-hmm. So, there's definitely a lot of research that shows that it does affect gut health. And when we affect our gut health, we do affect our brain health because it's connected.
Yeah. Right.
So avoiding those as much as possible is definitely a good idea, I believe. And organic too. There's varying studies on that, but there's been more studies to show that those plants and that produce actually has more vitamins and minerals and whatever, they're more optimized for that.
So if you're buying organic.
Yep, they have higher vitamin and mineral content. So the more that you eat of the organic, you give your body more time to detox and heal. Whereas if you keep taking in the other stuff.
Well, and I found too with my own research that organic is expensive. There's no doubt about it. And, but there are ways to do it on a budget. There are, things that you want to buy organic if you can. And then there's things that are okay if they're conventional. And I think that helps. And I actually am going to, in the blog this week, I'm going to have a list of those things for people to see too, of if you're on a budget, how this can work for you. And buying things in season too, right? I mean, I think that makes a huge difference.
Exactly. Yeah. If you do buy things that are seasonal or even locally grown, that'll save money too.
That's where I think we're really blessed here in Oregon. And I know there are a number of these sort of coastal states that have a rich farm to table culture, where you really can be sure, go to your CSA and get your own, get your food, see where it's grown by a local farmer. And I know we've been taking advantage of that for a number of years. It's really changed the dynamic of our table. But I sometimes, I think about what is it like if you live in a place that doesn't have these options? How much harder is it to plan your meal every week and make the kind of decisions that you need to make? Can you reflect a little bit on that?
Absolutely, because I live in Illinois, so I definitely know. But I do. There's a lot of great resources online that I would recommend looking up to see what's seasonal and what's local. And, you can save money that way. But you can also Google, and I do this quite often. I can't name my favorite website right off the bat, but if you Google what's to cook locally or seasonally with some of the vegetables, you can pull up a lot of information.
That's a great idea. And then that kind of, and they probably have recipes and different things too that kind of expand from that, I would assume.
Yeah, and the local CSA is also, that's a great idea because we do that here also. So then you're getting what's in season. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It does definitely save over the long run.
So I have a question for you about if you're introducing this kind of lifestyle or this healthy eating plan to your family for the first time, and I have a little bit of experience with this myself. Just in the last couple of years, we really kind of tried to switch some of the things that we were eating, getting away from processed food, eating more, like I was cooking more. So we were eating out less, which was a big deal. And, that transition is hard for kids. And I'm just curious if you have any suggestions for parents who, really want to implement these things, but, you've got your son or daughter who's wanting macaroni and cheese, or chicken nuggets. It's like, how do you get them out of that, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, I definitely went through that. My biggest tip is do it slowly. So
that's good.
Yeah, because a lot of things I see with my clients too is they have an all or nothing, which I completely get. It gets so overwhelming. They're like, oh, this is so expensive, I'm done.
And you hit a really key point of a characteristic in ADHD. Is, it is a lot of times people will have an all or nothing mentality. I'm glad you bring that up because, I think that happens. So you're saying don't give up.
Right. Yeah. Because just know that every small change you make is something that you didn't have before and you're doing the best you can. So I would there's so many good brands out on the market right now. So a lot of it just has to do with switching brands. So there's some brands that have macaroni and cheese, but they don't have the artificial colorings in them. So those are a safer bet. And then, same thing with the chicken nuggets. I'm not a fan of, so I won't go there. But even hot dogs. I have a daughter who loves hot dogs, and I am very against hot dogs. But I will occasionally indulge, and we'll do like an Applegate Farms without the nitrates and the nitrites.
Right. Yes.
So it's a lot of brand switching. But again, if you're going from a pretty much processed diet to more of a whole foods, definitely do it slowly. And, I would recommend starting out with the top, 2 or 3 things that you see in your refrigerator that are the most processed, and research brands that they can substitute with. So you're just doing a little at a time.
That's a great idea. Well, and we sort of have implemented this 80-20 rule where, if 80% of the time we can do a good job, then I feel really good about it. If 20% of the time I look the other way, then I'm okay with that too. I mean,
absolutely. I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, especially because when you're looking at, when they go to other people's houses, I mean, even family members, not even friends, but you can go to your, family member's house and they may not eat exactly the way that you do. And so they've got, children have to somewhat be flexible with that too. One of the things I noticed though, is that when you educate them and you really kind of tell them why you're doing this, like why we're switching from this brand or we're not buying this kind of cracker anymore, it is interesting how they may be kind of resisting it at first, but then it's almost like something clicks for them and they're like, oh, I really don't want to eat that. That does have a lot of ingredients that I don't understand.
It does. Yeah, and I have a story about that with my son that's not even ADHD related, but one time he grabbed a popsicle that had been outside and I looked at him and I said, that has yellow number 5 in there, right? Do you remember what we talked about with that? And I said, that's going to make that could exacerbate your asthma symptoms. I didn't use that word.
Yeah.
8-year-old at the time, but that can make your symptoms worse. And he looked at it and he got up and he threw the popsicle in the garbage. And he's like, yeah, I don't want to have problems later when I'm playing outside. So I was like, wow, there really is something to this. They really do want to feel better.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Once you're able to make a connection between the stuff you put in your body and the way it poisons you specifically, so that you can make those choices, I think that's one of the biggest challenges is we don't often make a connection between the stuff we put in our body and how we feel because it sometimes is, offset by a few hours or a day. I don't know if how I'm going to feel when I eat, these chips because I eat them every day, and maybe I misattribute this experience to having a cold or the flu or something like that, or just being restless. I think it's really important to be able to make that specific connection to how the food interacts with you.
And it's a great point because it could be slowly. And I always think about that story about the frog in the boiling water.
Sure, yeah.
I don't know what that story is. What's the story with the frog in the boiling water?
How do you not know the story with the frog? Where have you been?
Why is a frog in boiling water?
That's what the frog says.
Exactly. I just started reading about this, and I think it is such a good comparison, is, the story goes that they had 2 frogs. One they placed in boiling water, and he jumped right out and he survived. But the other frog they put in a pot of water, and they slowly brought it to boiling, and he boiled to death.
Oh,
so
no.
it's kind of the same thing, as we don't know what these things are doing to us slowly over time. So I think that was a great point.
It is. It's not a great visual.
No,
sorry,
it's not.
That's not. No. But I understand.
I think it's so glad that you brought that up, Tonya, because I'm usually the one that makes Nikki kind of grossed out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, not awesome for the frog. No. Poor frog. Now, but there is one thing I want to talk about before we end, and that's supplements, because even with the healthiest diet, and even if you were to do it 100% of the time, which we know that isn't really possible, we're probably still not getting everything that we need with vitamins and minerals. So I'm just curious to know, from your standpoint, what supplements do you suggest that are best for ADHD specifically? What's going to continue helping them focus and function, through the day at optimum level? What do you think?
Sure. And one of the reasons that we do recommend supplements is that sometimes not only is our diet a little lacking, as you mentioned, but even the food that's grown is sometimes lacking. It's depleted in nutrients. Mm-hmm. And then they found with ADHD that sometimes there's issues with essential fatty acid metabolism, meaning you need more than the normal person. So you would definitely need to supplement.
Okay, that's a good point. All right.
So some of those, especially essential fatty acids, that's so vital for brain health. You want a good multivitamin or multimineral, because you want those, they actually are needed to make these neurotransmitters.
Now, I just want to be clear. When you say fatty acid, that's fish oil, correct? Or that's one type is fish oil?
Yep. And I think I have some listed on that handout. Maybe not.
You do. Mm-hmm.
I do. Okay, great. Because it's anything from like pumpkin seeds to flax oil, fish oil. And one of the things that you really need is called DHA and EPA. And those you really only get from fish. So unless you're eating fish 2 to 3 times a week, I would definitely recommend supplementing with a DHA EPA supplement.
That was something I know when this was part of my big nutritional transition. We went to the doctor, they ran all my blood work, and they came back saying you are catastrophically low in that area. And much of it is because of, again, where we live. There's just not enough sun. There's just not, and I wasn't eating enough fish, and we're just not getting enough of that particular, hormone created. And so they put me on just a mega dose of fish oil.
Now, do you take vitamin D too as well? Because I've heard that you take vitamin D with fish oil. Like that's a common combination.
Vitamin D3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Would be a good one. And then there's other ones like magnesium. That's one that's consistently found to be low in ADHD. And then there's some also that you can kind of take for overall brain health. They're listed on the handout. So because the spelling is a little hard, but
yeah. Well, I know. I don't know how you've done a really good job pronouncing these things. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't even try. MSG is as far as I go. Right. Well, this is fantastic, and the handout is so helpful. So I really encourage people to check out the show notes. We'll have a direct link to download this. And where else can people find you? How can they get information about you, Tonya?
Sure. My website is goneholistic.net. And that's probably the best place to find me. My email is Tonya, Tonya, @goneholistic.net. And those are probably the best 2 places to find me.
Well, that is perfect. And we will put all of those in the show notes. We'll put links to the handout in the show notes. We'll put all of your social media goodies in the show notes. Our cup runneth over with goodies to share this week.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tonya, for joining us this week.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
This has been a fantastic conversation on behalf of all of us here. Thank you so much for downloading and listening. Don't forget, head over to iTunes. If you're an iTunes listener, we would love your 5-star reviews in the iTunes podcast entry. It certainly helps other people to discover this show. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer and Tonya Harris, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.